Hi everyone, it's CJ. Hope everyone is having a great summer. This week we have another special episode for you. It was actually filmed last year. Our CIO, Matt Wilson, went down to Nevada to visit the Borealis mine and talk with Borealis Mining's CEO, Kelly Malcolm, and one of their directors, Christina McCarthy. It was filmed last year. You may be wondering why we sat on it for so long. Good things come to those who wait, or, maybe last year Borealis was supposed to list, but, that's fine. A lot of the conversation, I'd say the lion's share of the conversation is still relevant. The three of them sit down and talk on site about, the state of junior mining, nerd talk about the geology in Nevada. And, a lot of that is still relevant today. Some things about Borealis, though, have changed and for the better. You'll notice in their conversation, they talk about a block of stocks that act as almost an overhang owned by Waterton. Kelly, since then, has sold that block to Rob McEwen and also has brought on Eric Sprott as another major investor. So, we filmed last year. The stock has gotten better. Please have a listen and learn more about the junior market, Nevada, and Borealis Mining. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of the Crash Labs podcast. We're sitting here in beautiful Hawthorne, Nevada. That's where we are, I think, Hawthorne, Nevada. Middle of summer. Where do you want to go in the middle of the summer? The desert. That's great. This is fantastic. Sun beating down on us, but we're here at the Borealis Mine. Actually fantastic. 9-hour site visit we've just gone through. Perfect guests here. Talk with at the Borealis Mine, CEO of Borealis, Kelly Malcolm, and Director of Borealis, Christina McCarthy, and Stefan, the man in the chair, making this all happen. Thanks for being here, buddy. This is pretty fantastic. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's the other way around, but thanks for being here. Yeah, a really great tour that we had today.
Christina, we have not seen each other. Well, I mean, we've seen each other the last 24 hours, but before that, we hadn't seen each other for a while. We were big shareholders of Paycore, so thought I'd kick this off not with Borealis because that makes more sense.
Okay.
And congratulations on Paycore.
Yeah, it was a very quick deal. We went public in April 2022, and then we were bought and taken over by I-80 not even a full year later. So bit of a record timing, I guess, in that respect, and happened. It was good. Shareholders all made money. It was a $98 million valuation, and I think that everyone's pretty happy about it, especially when you think of the district scale potential.
What did we play that deal at? We put a check into that at what was it, $1.60?
You've done it at
what was that 20 million financing done?
Significantly lower than that.
Oh, when you did.
Yeah, when you raised the money, you raised right before the deal.
Oh, 162.
162, right? And then the deal was what, 220, something like that, right? That worked out to be.
It was 278 by the time it was all
by the time it was all said and done.
Yeah, because it was a ratio that we had to use.
Well, the crazy thing about that too is that transaction happened before the hold period was even off the financing paper, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So even before you could actually exit.
Essentially, it was. I think it was 24 hours after we closed that financing. So we went out at $8 million. It got up by the next morning. We were at like 23 million, and we were like, no, let's not take that. So we did 16 million. We upsized it to, I think we closed out at 18.6 million. But then 24 hours after we closed that is when we got the letter from I-80 with their letter of intent of trying to take us over. And I was just like, you guys couldn't even let us drill one hole. I got $18 million. You can't even drill one hole.
I was going to ask Christina, you've gone from like analysts, you were sell side, and then you went to corp side, and then you got into like running this company. Did you miss like the offer? Like you had like $20 million. Like I just want to drill.
Yeah, well that was it. Like you're junior mining CEO, as we all know, it's like the worst when you're trying to raise that kind of money, and we all know the window's only open when it's open, and so the timing of it was perfect. And we had some awesome targets. I mean, you look at that deposit, so it's 3.5 million tons. It was over 5 grams gold, 200 grams silver, and over 13% lead zinc. And that was just sort of that main high grade core. We had drilled a ton around that. Then there was about a kilometer down dip that Hecla had drilled in the 50s, 60s. and some of the holes ended in like 14% zinc. So like down dip a kilometer, that was one of the holes that ended in. And so, I mean, I think I-80 is going to have a fun time drilling.
That project is awesome.
Yeah, it was
so
pretty
cool.
good.
And you're on the board now to help them out too, right?
What was that?
You've stuck around on the board of I-80.
Yeah, and so I-80 asked me to join the board of 8. So that was, and I mean, so I sort of get to see my baby get
Grow up. Grow up and get exploited.
Yes.
That's a bizarre thing to say.
Yeah,
Grow up and get
And be exploited. Yes.
be exploited.
Good reference, children. That's a good one. That's terrible.
Well, what else are you going to say? Yeah.
It's terrible.
I get to see the advancement of the district, the play in general, and with a lot of capital putting towards it. Multiple rigs, a lot more, umph behind it, as opposed to a junior company that's has,
Bringing along and working. Yeah.
Had you been in Nevada for a bit before that, before you took over Paycore? Remind me of the history.
Well, my only time in Nevada was when I was working with McEwen for 5 years in Gold Bar, and I've always loved Nevada. What brought me onto this was, the whole idea that, and maybe it's a good segue into Borealis actually, is that I was looking for projects that just had little exploration and very little work done in the last multi decades or several years. And this particular area, there 2 PhDs at the University of Arizona co-authored a paper with the exploration geologist of Barrick and identified this entire area as completely underexplored because of alluvial being on top of the structure. And so when I looked at this, and I thought there's like a whole lineage and strike of for 100 kilometers of mines, and then this whole area has not been
for the uninitiated alluvials.
Yeah, and so it's like
alluvials
what's under
are
that?
What? What's alluvials?
So just a bunch of junk, guys.
Perfect.
To put it
I like
easy.
that. That's true. Yes.
It
Bunch of
is.
junk.
It's
Perfect.
just
Bunch
a
of junk
junk.
that's left off the mountain.
Great.
Yeah, like exactly. And so because of that, again, the structure wasn't exposed. When we came in, we saw that we had the existing Ruby Hill mine. It's confusing because we broke FAD away from the whole district that used to be Archimedes Pit and FAD, and which is also Ruby Hill. So they were together one project at one time, and we broke it out and we just owned FAD, and then we had a ROFR on the rest of the district play, which was owned by Waterton. So that was the Archimedes Pit, and what I-80 made their big discovery on. And so yeah, we saw the potential and thought, like, this hasn't been mined or drilled in about 60 years. And so it's kind of what led me to that area. So, and Nevada is one of the best.
What is it with Nevada? Why do geologists, you guys, why do you get so excited? It's like
well, it's the #1 district in the world for mining, according to the Fraser Institute. But also,
that's the cheesy answer, but
that is the cheesy answer.
Why do geologists get excited?
I mean,
it's amazing. Like,
it's
Matt, we're sitting outside. It's 80 degrees. The sun's shining. There's gold mines all around us. There's a gold mine that's owned by Hecla just down the road here. Gold mine owned by some juniors down the road this way. The geology is spectacular. It's easy. In contrast, so when you look at the Carlin Trend, for example, everyone knows if you owned a Carlin gold stock, it's the Wangman or Wangben or whatever they say. There's that one formation that hosts all the gold. You drill, you look for that formation, you're onto something. You can find it. So this is repeatable, easy, quantifiable geology.
Right.
And that's what gets me excited. Plus the fact that they love mining here. It's the bread and butter.
They do love mining.
This and casinos, honestly, are the bread and butter of the state. It's amazing.
Nevada makes up 80% of the U.S. annual production.
80%.
80%, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
If it's its own country, I mean, it
would be one of the top 10 producers globally. The state would be one of the top 10 producers globally.
Right.
In contrast with countries.
Circling back, the Carlin Trend. There's the Carlin Trend. So there's 3 trends in Nevada.
Yeah.
The Carlin Trend,
Battle Mountain Eureka Trend, and the Walker Line Trend. So Carlin is about, I'd say, 120 million ounces. Battle Mountain Eureka Trend's about 100 million ounces, and Walker Line's about 25 million ounces. If you don't count
Round Mountain,
which is probably 20
million.
That's
kind of a hybrid,
right?
And we're sitting right now in the Walker Trend.
We're on
Paycore was in the Walker Trend.
The western end of the Walker Line Trend here. Like, California border is just over that mountain range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paycore was in the Battle Mountain Eureka Trend.
Oh.
Honestly, they're all prolific. They're different. So Carlin's very it's calcareous. So there's different ways to look at each of these different things. So you'll have preg robbing ore in the Carlin Trend. Battle Mountain's much more volcaniclastic, I believe. And here is a mixed bag. You get kind of anything and everything.
So what's around here? So I know there's some monsters, obviously, around Nevada. What's around here?
So the biggest one by far, like Christina mentioned, is Round Mountain. Arguably, it kind of is a hybrid mishmash deposit. Just down the road here, 1.9 million ounces past production at Aurora's, or Hecla's Aurora mine.
Yeah.
There's the Bodie mine just across the mountain range into California that did 1.6 million ounces. This project's done 625,000 with another well over 1 million in resource. There's big deposits. They just this area has gotten lesser love, I think, historically, for whatever reason.
Likely because of the whole Carlin trend and the big rush, and then the Eureka rush, right?
Okay, that's fair.
But all very prolific. That they are the most 3 prolific belts in Nevada.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so that brings us to this where we are right now, right? Sitting here, Borealis. All right, the history of this project. It's
very
awesome.
Interesting.
It's awesome. I'm not even going to talk about the project yet. The history of this project is amazing. And before we talk about the most fun part of it, maybe just like, we're sitting here, the history, like it was founded in 78. Like, what's happened here?
So 1976, project was sold originally by a guy that I've actually had to cite recently, John Whitney. He sold it to Telesto. Or Tenneco. Telesto did the 4301 report. Tenneco Mines, they made the discovery of the Borealis pit just behind us. Over a period of 10 years, they advanced it into the mining stage, exploited 500,000 ounces, around 2 grams per ton gold, oxide, beautiful project, and then reclaimed the whole property. So they revegetated everything. They took it all infrastructure. Aside from the topography of old leach pads and waste dumps, you wouldn't even necessarily know there was.
So it was totally covered.
It was totally covered. It was not lost. It was covered. Following that, there were a number of drilling programs that happened. It was optioned by a number of companies. Barrick, I think, at one point had it, and a number of juniors. A couple holes here and there, dominantly focused around the resource. 2006, a company called Griffin Gold was public. They got the project, or an option to the project, and set about building a reasonably sized mining operation, focused on resources that were already defined. So they went about drilling the existing areas of mineralization, expanding them a bit, and work to fast track a mine. And they did so. They built this refinery behind us, built permitted new leach pads, brought in all new infrastructure, offices, fencing, etc., and got a permit approved to exploit. In that process, they got into a loan arrangement that did not work out well in their favor. They ended up losing the entirety of the asset. The private equity firm that got the asset through that loan agreement were sued by the previous shareholders of Griffin Gold. That lasted about 10 years, went all the way to the Supreme Court of Nevada. Essentially, it was granted that it was the private equity firm's project and thing. So they started exploiting it. They did about 8 months of mining, of which we're still actually recovering gold. And we'll talk about that in a bit, but we did see a gold bar today.
Yeah. 2, actually.
2 gold bars. Actually, 4 gold bars. But
4 gold bars on the table.
Bars. We saw 2 pour today. And they started mining for about 8 months. They seemingly was a profitable operation. They're pivoting to a battery materials fund, and essentially we're liquidating their gold portfolio. We'd been looking at this. I'd been in the data room for 8 or 9 months before we really jumped on the project. And as of April 17th, Kelly Malcolm, CEO, controlled this mining asset. It's pretty crazy.
Timing. That was all timing.
We got a great deal. Yeah, it was timing.
It's awesome.
Asset, people, location.
Because a lot of people looked at it.
A lot of people had looked at it. Yeah.
You just happened to be there at the end of the litigation.
Exactly. Just perfect timing. And we got a crazy deal.
Yeah, amazing deal.
So we paid $100,000 US on signing of the purchase agreement, April 17th. Scarily, we owned and operated a mine as of that day. So we thankfully.
I remember we were in the office together, and you're like, "Well, I guess I own a mine." Sweet.
So that was crazy. We Thankfully, we had a transition team in place from the previous operators. They were awesome and set us on the right path, because it is very daunting running a gold mine. So following that $100,000 US, we have to pay or issue securities that are equivalent to 19.9% of our go public share count.
Yeah.
And that has to be worth
to Waterton. That's one of Waterton.
And that has to be worth $5 million US.
Okay.
So on paper, there's a few milestone payments down the line. They're, like we talked about today, that they're amazing. So if we hit any of those achievements, I will happily pay the cash.
It's like $5 million if I have 3 million ounces.
$5 million if I have 2.8 million ounces of high grade underground sulfide ore. So if that happens, glory be to God, we're going mining. So essentially, on paper, we paid $5.1 million US for a gold mine that we've poured gold 3 times since acquisition, permitted pits, and the wealth of data here is crazy. The core library is crazy.
Yeah,
genuinely amazing. I think, and I'll say that all day, all night.
Yeah, there's a documentary on those legal battles.
There is.
That is on YouTube, and I encourage anyone that's watching this or listening to this right now, pause this whole thing, go watch that, and then come back, because it's so nuts that there was so much production value put into that documentary.
Yep.
And people were so pissed. And say what you want about what's there.
Whatever
the documentary is basically about the legal battle.
Yeah.
Right.
But it also really does speak to the value of this asset.
All I saw. I was like, man, the asset's awesome.
Yeah, right. I agree. So, yeah, side with whomever you want on that. But it really does speak to, I think, how incredible the project is, and the potential, and the size, and the growth, and the mining, and the revenue, and the profitability. So it's really, really neat that someone else says that.
Yeah.
Come on, just talk about the valuation.
Yeah, the valuation in there. What did they get? There's one guy.
I think at one point they were trading up to $56 or $60 million.
Well, Griffin was for sure.
Yeah,
I remember Griffin as
2011.
Yeah, for sure. But the issue with Griffin, we'll jump. But the issue with Griffin, as I remember, and I was really new. I don't think only been an analyst for like 2 years, which means that I was really only an analyst for like 4 months from that. But like I remember the issue with Griffin. It sat down. It's hilarious. It was this asset we're sitting at. And I remember that the point was, it was like, well, small. It's gonna be small. It's gonna be small production. They have to invest 30, 40, whatever it is.
Yep, big money.
$50 million into it. And small mining never works. And like the focus of those guys was small mining. And I, in my career, usually if you see small mining, you're like,
yeah, oftentimes it results in small share of price.
Well, it's just so hard. Mining's so
single
hard.
Asset
right?
too is challenging.
Yeah.
Why'd you do this one?
So we're treating it as an exploration company. We went around, we got to go tour the site. You see, well, we can't see anyone on this camera, but there's crazy exploration targets around here. So we've got a good resource base, we've got infrastructure, we've got a facility. My dream and my hope and my goal is to not only expand on what we have, but also find some new oxide deposits. And as you saw on the tour, there's crazy red outcrops, crazy hills, crazy jasperoid targets. There's really, really nice looking stuff.
Do you think people know when you say crazy jasper?
No one knows what I'm talking about.
What does that even mean?
So there's a lot of indication of high sulfidation, mineralization, and alteration, which is the target that we're looking for. We're after high sulfidation epithermal gold deposits, which are typically very profitable. In this case, it's really cool, which is what I was saying about the reason that I love Nevada as a geologist, especially this area, is this is a 5 to 10 million year old rock package. So what's really cool about that is all the stuff that you learn in school, for the most part, in geology is like, meh. When you get in the field, you're like, oh, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
In this case, because the rocks are so young, it almost looks like a mushroom. So you have your feeder system coming up, and then you have this big sort of halo of lower grade gold, and you get these beautiful alteration packages around it. And when you look at older rocks, like where I've worked historically, you have a Tibby, for example, those have been twisted, turned, ripped apart, faulted, disjointed. Here, where if you find a shallow, flat-lying gold deposit, you stick an angled hole below it, you're going to find the high-grade feeder. And that's where like the big grades are, the big payoffs are. Historically, this district has been mined in an underground manner for those high-grade veins. And the potential's here. We've in the database that we have, you can already see all of that crazy high-grade material. which is what got you excited originally.
Yeah, we're clearly pumping our book here. Is obviously like, we're shareholders of Borealis. Okay, I realize that the last however long we've been talking, we've basically only said positive things.
I've been yammering about
We've had like a lot of positive things. It's been a nice little like.
So it's negative time.
It's been a lot. It's been a nice little like shoulder rub for all of us here, right?
Yes.
So we're all here. We all like this project,
and we all like each other.
This is a $20 million pre-money deal, so obviously it's not like done. What's the issue here? Let's brainstorm some negatives, right? I think it's always good to talk about negatives. Like
so number one, so what we talked about when I first started pitching this to people, even before we even signed the LOI, when we were like, what do we think about this? Like, it's a mine, there's risks involved, there's liabilities involved with that. What happens a lot with small scale miners is they, most of the time naively, think that if you build the mine, you produce it, nothing's going to happen. And of course it does. They end up having to take money. No one's going to give you equity when you're a failed mining operation. You take a loan and you go under. That happens all the time. The other risk is on a share price. So even if your mine is spitting out 10,000, 20,000 ounces a year, that's all you're doing. You have a small resource. You don't get a big multiple for that in the market. You maintain a low multiple, low valuation, typically low share price, and you're essentially depleting your resources and reserves on a daily basis with no real growth. That's the reason that I've been pitching this as an exploration story,
right,
that has a mine on site. So we're financing it not as a mining company. We're financing it as a well-funded junior exploration company. So we always want to have enough dollars in the bank that we're able to aggressively drill, find new areas, because I think that's really where you're going to get the oomph and the market interest is in growth. Like,
yeah, although a couple 100,000 ounces of oxide,
it's really lovely. I think that it really backstops, and if not actually backstops higher than our current valuation, but that's a question for.
But it's also got to be tough, and I mean, you had to deal with it too, right? And like, we got to talk about it. It's important to talk about because it's also got to be tough. You have a fund in Waterton, right, who is moving away from the gold space, and had some It's a debt fund, private equity and debt. Inevitably, you have challenges when you deal with them. As soon as
there's liquidation, that's what happens.
That's what they do. That's the whole point of the model.
And the fund is.
But the fund is actually liquidated.
Yeah.
So it's a genuine concern, and whenever and they've been really good with us so far.
Seem great.
At some point, they're going to sell their shares, so that's certainly something that I've been actively working on, finding buyers for that block, because it's a sizable amount of shares. It'll be around 13 to 14 million shares.
They own even more with your deal, right?
We had to issue Waterton the greater of 10 million US or 35% of the shares.
Right.
So they own it big.
They own a big
piece of ours.
That's a scary chunk.
Luckily,
too.
That was. I mean, I had my irons in the fire constantly
from day one, of course.
From day one, that's why I lost sleep every night. Where am I going to put this, and who am I talking to tomorrow to make sure that when this goes up for sale, I have a buyer, and we'll do the same here.
Do you think that junior mining companies really know? We're segueing here. Junior mining companies like take enough responsibility for when they raise money. Like I know that
a lot don't.
We're going to jump to Canada for a second and like flow through dollars, right? Like if you raise flow through dollars, and you're just like, I don't know why my shares are selling off after 4 months in a day, then it's like you whine about it. I've been there. Like I understand, but like, do you think that we as an industry like think it's transparent enough?
I don't think it's the mining industry. I think it's public markets in general, and I guess there's a lot of naive management teams out there. Not that we're some gray-haired group, but I think that this is a very young crowd. But I think we've all had exposure to really great mentors and people, and that have structured and built real, very well managed companies. Yeah, like working with Victor at Amex. He is the most anal retentive about dilution. He agonizes over every share he issues out of treasury, and I think that's a really important way to run a company.
Definitely.
We did
structures everything,
and we did structures everything, and shareholders are everything.
So why is it then? Now, not that there's an answer to this, but why is it? So you look at the Aussie market right now, right? The Aussie market is killing Canada, killing Canada. Right, it sucks being in Canada. Yeah, like everything in Australia is worth more than it is in Canada right now. Right, the most hilarious thing in Australia is, of course, the structure. There's like 9 billion shares out. I own a company right down there that's like 14 billion shares outstanding. But it's trading at 0.00001, but it has like a $15 million market cap, right? So why Why is it so important?
Because I don't think share count is the same thing as structure. I think that's a very different discussion.
Okay,
Structure
fair.
is shareholders and how you're placing and
But inevitably,
issuing
when you're public, if
securities.
you have enough shares, then they're going
to churn, of course.
Australia,
And
however,
you want them to churn.
transparent. Every shareholder reports.
Really?
Every shareholder in Australia reports. So if you're there is no like promo scheme where it's like you talk about like like you report every single day.
Wow.
Yeah, like every broker has to report. It's a big thing, right?
There's
so
no
like,
anonymous.
So I was chatting with Mike Hudson from
I wonder
Lawson,
if guys
right?
trade through Canada to trade anonymously and then make it back. I'm sure they do.
I'm sure some people do.
Because a lot of guys do that in the U.S. Like Canadian people that want to trade anonymously will sell on the U.S. OTC,
right?
Because then it sort of mixes and
just moves back.
It ends up trading back into the market, but
it's pretty anonymous.
People are sneaky with trading,
and anyone can trade anonymously. Like if you have a broker,
if you have a broker,
anonymous.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty easy.
But you can always get those reports.
Yes. There's nothing really anonymous. You know who it is. Like when you put someone in, they're like, well, now we've sold. That anonymous has now sold 1.3 million shares in the last 3 weeks.
I mean, if it's a big enough share count,
you can tell a bit.
We're here in Nevada. What is the infrastructure behind us? That's an ADR plant.
There's an adsorption desorption refinery facility, recovery, adsorption desorption recovery facility.
Anymore.
Essentially, you have a heap leach pad in the back, one of the bigger stacks there. You throw hoses basically over it that have holes in them. It drips out cyanide. That cyanide grabs the gold out of the ore that we've stacked onto the leach pads, goes into the refinery or the recovery facility, plays with some carbon. We end up with a loaded carbon. That carbon is stripped of its gold. We pour doré bars on site.
Right.
And as you saw today, which I purposely did,
which was awesome,
was we pour gold.
It was a sweet gold pour.
It was great. It was really fun. They're always fun to watch.
That was the second one. So
that was to see the first one.
That was our third one actually since acquisition of the asset.
I did get to see the first one.
You got to see the first one.
You saw the very first one. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
We did another one since then.
We tried to get some little like Hershey kiss size.
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
No.
And what brought you into Borealis?
I think really what sold it for me was coming here, because we've all heard about this asset. You know, the documentary really kind of put it out there. I mean, actually, we were financing for our Go Public event, I think within the 2 days that the video came out. So the timing of it was like
horrendous.
Right. Okay. We still managed to raise 12 million US for the Go Public event, but it was really, there's a lot of similarities that reminded me of Paycore, and the one
Waterton.
biggest one, well, obviously the Waterton aspect, because we bought our project from Waterton.
They had good assets.
And it was, they've got great assets.
Assembled a beautiful,
like an amazing portfolio.
Yeah. And when you come here and you actually walk the ground and you see the potential, and I mean, you see targets. I mean, you can see one just behind you, which the camera won't see over there, but back over here, just the red, what he's talking about, the solidification. Yeah. It's just that red targets everywhere, right? Just cropping,
just ready for
that have never been drilled. And then you look at, and especially when there's one area which I'm sure we'll get an image thrown up for everyone is you look at Freedom Flats and you see the structure through Freedom Flats, and beyond that you see how all these bright red targets line up, and then the pit even beyond that, and then you look behind you and you're like, well, I want to know what's behind me, because clearly the structure continues, and it's all that alluvial that I was talking about with FAD, how all that alluvial was there. No one saw the structure. No one knew it existed. And so where I see like huge upside and excitement in the exploration here is there's so much alluvial back there that's never been drilled, tested, and it has hardly even any geophysics.
And it's easy drilling. You're just testing long strike.
And so
it's easy as it gets.
When I was here, and so for that's what really sold me to join the board of directors, is like there's just how mismanaged it was when it was run, because there was just so much that they missed. And I think it's gonna, exploration wise, I think that there's a lot more that they're gonna see just as soon as a lot more that folks will see as soon as you start actually drilling.
It's pretty fun walking around with you guys, because there's literally just like the most basic like arrows pointed, like the air traffic controllers.
But you can see it. That's the cool thing.
That's that. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's that. Oh, that. And then at the end of this is Hecla's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost
along
like
strike.
You
directly
literally
strike.
are
direct.
connecting dots.
But then
along
beyond
a
that,
string.
there's one more. So we're here. Aurora's there, and then the Bodie mine, which is another 1.4 million ounces, is just on the other side of the California border. Again, a long trend. So they used to call this the Aurora Borealis trend. So you can Google that, and all three of those mines will show up in that trend.
Yeah.
Reminds
So
me of like Northern Lights or something.
it's like an offshoot of the Walker Lake.
Like these are
Right.
massive structures that go for kilometers
yeah.
and
Right.
kilometers.
And we have there is 1.5 million ounces or 2 million. What is it?
So 2011 historical resource 2.4. There was some gold exploited out of that. So
Right.
you can certainly say 1.5 and be very comfortable with that.
Right. Okay. So 1.5 million ounces, and then 300 and something is oxide, right? So that
And that's in
that can be
reserves as well.
processed. That's like the PFS. and I'm going to jump the gun here, but so there's 28 million or 30 million of replacement infrastructure here or something.
Yep.
And the gold pour we saw today, that's super scalable. And the whole point here is that it's like we've got 300,000 ounces that we can produce
on those pads
basically
and
tomorrow
produce,
once we're ready, once you guys are pushing this forward, and then there's this huge exploration upside. It's like finding these oxide things, and I forget what I always forget. Fremont, what was Marco Day's company sold for $2 billion to Newmont? It was all oxide, I think. That in 2010 or something. Anyway, Oxide Nevada. All I know is Oxide Nevada.
It's the king.
Big deal.
Yeah.
It's a real big deal. Like you can mine profitably and extract profitably from 0.2 grams per ton gold, and actually make a lot of money on that,
Mhm.
which is it's an anomaly.
But then,
Like in most areas, that's a target to potentially look at next year or something.
Yeah, but
Here
what's
it's ore.
amazing too is that the infrastructure. I mean, the deal that you got. I mean, we saw the gold pour. We don't have to put a bunch of capital into the ADR plant. We poured gold today, so we're already at that stage of spending the capital to get there. Which most juniors are in the struggles of raising capital.
Or we'll never get there.
To get there, right? Or never get there, and that's
The vast majority never get there. Actually,
So
that's what the compelling reason, like for anyone to look at this and say, like, wow, look at all exploration upside from here.
And the cool thing for me, and we talked about this earlier, but for everyone, the fact that if we find even a pod of 50,000 ounces down the road of 2, 3, 4, 5 gram material of oxide, who cares? You permit that and you throw it on the pads. You don't need to find another 20 million ounce gold deposit.
Or a round mountain.
Or a round mountain. I'd love to find one. But finding pods of 100, 2, 3, 400,000 ounces in and around this property is massively accretive to the company valuation, because and when you build a lot of mines, you have to build your tailings, build your permit, all that stuff. Here you have to permit exploitation. You have to permit taking the rock out of the ground, putting it on a truck and bringing it here.
Yeah. When you got me going on this asset initially, it's interesting that
You've come full circle.
I've come full circle. Like I didn't care about the infrastructure because I hate small mining. Oh no, the infrastructure is great. And then I didn't really care about the oxides because they've been mined, and no, there's a lot of oxide left. But then what I did care about at the very beginning was there's this hole of 67 meters of 16 grams.
Yep.
And like 140 meters of 5 grams or 4 grams
There's
or
beautiful
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's all in sulfide ore.
That's directly below us right here.
That's
here. In sulfides. Yeah, it's actually the deposit runs just along the parking lot here over towards Freedom Flats. It's right there.
It's right here.
Yeah.
That's why you like
We're going to drill.
That's why Nevada, because you can go get pizza 20 minutes away.
Yeah. Then we had a barbecue and then
have a barbecue, come back, drill some holes. Okay.
That's awesome.
So but that's a target too.
Yep. There's the sulfides are what in the same vein as you, I promoted myself.
That was why I got so excited initially.
Sulfides, because a lot of these pits, and you know, in Nevada, like historically, they would just look at the oxide and stop. What got me excited was those crazy grades. The fact that under all of these pits should be these feeder zones that are probably more sulfide rich, which it works. It's not the ideal because it is slightly refractory, this material. So you have to process it in a certain capacity. But under all the pits, there should be beautiful high-grade feeders. And the idea was look at every single one of these pits, drill under them, have some beautiful results and build up resources on that. But then coming here for the first time, actually the first time I was still on the sulfide kick. And the second time, once the snow had all melted and I got to look around the property.
Does it get really snowy here in the winter?
It's snow covered.
We're pretty high up right now.
We're up 7,700 feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's snow on the ground for sure.
It's hot when the sun's out.
It's actually the clouds.
We have a really
right
nice
now.
breeze
I'm
right
really
now.
happy the clouds are out, right? This is lovely.
But once I got on the project and I could play around, go bang on some rocks, take up the ATV and go look property wide. And like you guys saw today, you could see all those oxide targets. You put the grab sample maps together. The oxide stuff really does excite me a lot. I think like it's the worst. Asking a gold geologist what he thinks of the price of gold is so stupid.
I didn't.
I know, but
I did not.
I'm putting
You're
it
just
in.
putting that in there.
I'm putting
Yeah.
it
I
in
would never.
there. I'm very pro. I think the world is a bit weird, so I think we'll have a good gold run at some point in the future, and I think it's a great place to be invested at these lower valuations, which is I think some of your investment thesis.
Yeah.
At Labs, right?
Well, the whole point, yeah, we have the thesis that you've got your inflationary trends, you've got your supply chain arguments, and for most metals, you've got a good argument for it. But it's like the values are so depressed for things. It just sucks because you put money into a deal and then it trades off 40% literally in one day.
It's awful.
Like one day. It
hurts.
Sucks. Fund managing right now is hard. I know I've had a couple of other guys.
But you had some massive wins lately too as well.
Yeah, we had some good stuff. Paycore was great. There's been some nice moves privately as well. But yeah, it's a weird space right now, right? Like it's just tough. So, but yeah, it's good to hear that the reaction's been pretty well.
Yeah, we got some
positive.
huge checks from a few individuals, bunch of retail. I'm really excited about our shareholder base going forward.
Yeah,
it's a beautifully structured company. Yeah, I every single CEO of a junior mining company thinks it's going to be the best company ever, but I really think that this is structured really well with really good people. The asset I think is great. And I think our board, Christina included for sure, is spectacular.
The board. We have to talk about the board.
We have to talk about.
We have to at least bring this up. It's like such a promotional thing. To talk about.
It's
such a ridiculous board.
So we have really good people guiding us.
Who are they?
Who are they? They're awesome. So Christina, just within a year, like last year, you sold Paycore from low valuation to $90 million plus. Everyone made money, which is amazing. It never happens. So kudos. We have Rich Patricio, one of the founding directors of NextGen, which is the best uranium deposit arguably in the world.
See, that stock's moving now.
It's moving. Well, they got permitted, yeah, or they're close to being permitted.
Yeah, that thing's moving.
It's moving and it'll keep moving.
Yeah.
You have Bob Buchan, who founded Kinross Gold Corp, a number of other very large companies that he's put together and run. You have Greg Gibson, who recently sold Jarrett Canyon, also previously sold Trelawney, founded and sold that, which is what I Am Gold is currently building, the Cote Lake project.
Yeah, hilariously, that's what Andreas actually was working on, wasn't he?
Too,
Your
yeah.
COO.
Yeah, and then full circle there is Tony McCooch is the chairman of the board. Tony is a mining legend. He sold Kirkland Lake Gold recently to Agnico. In the same vein as Christina, every person basically made money that ever played in that story, which is amazing.
I have a hard time with Macassa still because I almost died in the shaft in
well, that's a scary
2010. That thing is terrifying.
I think it's been revamped a lot, but it was
way better now.
It's historically
terrifying.
Yeah, so we have like a dream team that's guiding the company along, and helping to execute on the company's vision and growth and potential acquisition targets and mine planning and we have so many like different intelligent skill sets that can really push us in the right direction. So
it's pretty awesome.
We're set up to do with the assets great, the team's great. Our management team is awesome. You had them all day today. They're really fun, young, hungry, moved their families down from Northern Ontario to Nevada. They're in it to win it.
Honestly, Nevada's almost boring.
In terms of what?
It's okay. It's like you just drive to I flew to Sacramento, I drove to Reno.
Drove through Tahoe, yeah.
There was a highway this whole way.
That's because you see basin and range.
Where's the hard,
there's no challenge.
The stories we've talked about so far, we've talked about like different crazy countries.
Oh, we saw some cool things on the drive here.
He's being facetious. It's a beautiful drive, Matt. It's lovely.
It's lovely mountains.
Beautiful mountains everywhere.
Lovely. We'll write some poetry or something.
It's actually the least populous state, I believe, in USA.
Is it?
Yeah, on a per capita basis. I'm surprised that Alaska isn't there, but maybe that counts as something else. I did hear this stat. Maybe I'm just making it up.
That
Alaska would trump that, yes, for sure.
Possibly be true.
It can't be true. No, it's not true. I don't know who told me that.
Is that like all the grain here is 0.7? That's the same thing.
Who are you going to reference right now that told you that, Kelly?
I don't know. Maybe it was on. No, I don't know. It's whatever. It was dumb of me to listen to it. But Nevada is wicked. We had breakfast at McDonald's, drove up the road. 20 minutes later, we're at our mine site. We're sitting right inside the gates. It's cool.
That's cool. We're going to go get pizza now.
Yeah.
Or seafood or something.
Seafood in the desert. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, good. Rookie move.
Yeah. Probably pizza.
Probably pizza.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Look, guys, that was really fun.
Mm.
Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And thanks again for coming down, guys.
I think that
Yeah.
we're excited to see what happens here. Going to put this out and gonna get listed, and it's gonna be a fun thing to watch. I think that
Yeah,
It's
should
going to be one
fun.
of the more exciting ones, I think.
it's gonna be
so.
cool. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, again, like we're just pitching our.
It's up to yeah.
It's like,
we're
yeah,
all pitching
like,
a story.
obviously, we like the story. We're sitting here in front of the Borealis Mining
Yeah.
sign. But yeah, guys, thanks a lot. That was a lot of fun. And thanks for the tour today.
Thanks. Thank you for coming. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Matt.
Sweet.